All right, let's do this. How are you, what the fuckers? How's it going? That's it. Today, I'm just going with what the fuckers. I'm tightening it up today because today is sort of it's a pretty big day for me, and I want to be. I just want to feel it. I don't want to get off onto a rambling start. I just want to feel it. By the way, I'm Marc Maron. This is WTF. Thank you for choosing WTF as your podcast to listen to in this moment. Today is Monday, August 10th. Yesterday was Sunday, August 9th. And on August 9th, I had 16 years clean and sober. This is astounding. It's astounding. There's a lot of things astounding about it, but just the number at this point is fairly astounding. There's a couple ways to look at that. Like, that's amazing. I got 16 years sober. The other way to look at it is like, holy shit, where the fuck did all that time go? It's weird when time just becomes a smear behind you. And it's only, you can just look back at it and see kind of major events kind of popping in and out of the surface. And like, what happened, man? What happened? So much shit happened in my sobriety, both good and bad. Obviously, the best thing is that because I did not drink or do drugs, I was afforded the luxury of sort of finding myself and owning who I am and sort of progressively getting more okay with that. Let's not go crazy. Obviously, I'm not perfect. I'm not even sure I'm a good person necessarily, but I do know that I am 16 years clean and sober today, and I did not do it alone. And as coded as I'm going to get, if it wasn't for the secret society, I would not have had it. If it wasn't for many people in my life, I don't think it would have been possible, certainly not steadily. A lot of very supportive friends and a lot of reaching out to others, asking for help, listening to other people was a big contributor to my sobriety and maintaining that and continuing to do that. Thank you for being there for me. Because believe it or not, this podcast and the act of talking like this and talking to other people and getting out of myself like that has helped me immensely on so many levels. And most of them personal and emotional and psychological. And I think it certainly made my sobriety amazing. And success over the years is a whole other thing to deal with. I think that, feeling proud of myself and that I've done something that people enjoy and that I have somewhat of a legacy with this thing has filled in a great void where the lack of self-esteem lived. There's still a little bit of a void there. It's still not filled to the top, but sometimes you might not. You might not fill it all up. But thank you. Not just for listening, but for being there. I appreciate it. It's a big day, and I don't think that I'm fully capable of acknowledging things emotionally for as big as they are, because now I'm completely paralyzed with fear and terror that I'm going to drop dead any second. That's the new thing for me. I've really refined my anxiety. But again, thank you very much. Today on the show, Lynn Shelton, the amazing independent film director. Maybe you've seen her movies Hump Day or Your Sister's Sister, or Touchy Feely, Laggies. She's directed episodes of television, New Girl, Fresh Off the Boat, The Mindy Project, Mad Men. She's an independent filmmaker, does a bit of TV. I like her movies, and it was just sort of this random thing. I had asked her, I'd reached out to her before to direct some of the episodes of Maron, but it didn't pan out. But nonetheless, I've watched her movies, and I like talking to directors because there's a lot of ways you can go, and I think we have very nice chat. Smart woman, a doer, a getting things done person. I got to get some stuff done. I have a tremendous amount of anxiety around taking action around things. I don't know if I strike you as that kind of person, but many of you have heard the trials and tribulations of the hole in my driveway, the inconsistent drainage situation I have, the buckled concrete all the way down to my house. My house was built in 1924. It's falling apart. How many years have I talked about my fucking driveway? I have sandbags in front of the goddamn garage. I need to get a new driveway. Why do I keep putting it off? I don't know. My deck, my beat up old fucking redwood deck was looking horrible. That needs to be sanded and refinished. Why don't I do that? I've been talking about getting a new car because my car now is like, the trunk is smashed in. There's, one of the rims is all fucked up. It's a 2006 Camry. That car is going to run for a long time, the one I have. But Ryan Singer needs a car, and now he doesn't have a car, and I've been talking about getting a new car for 3 years. So, like, all these things are hanging, so I just decided, let's just do it all at once. Let's make it all happen in the same 3 days. Apparently, and I didn't know this, and I don't know if other people experience this, but because of, I guess, what I come from, this sort of boundaryless emotional chaos and erraticness, whatever I come from, the fact is, and I'm not tooting my own horn or blowing smoke up my own ass or whatever, things have panned out for me. It wasn't easy. It happened late in life. Not late. I'm not 100, but you know what I'm saying. Things are okay. And that's a new place for me to be. So apparently, when I do things that should make me feel good about myself, I find them terrifying and anxiety-inducing, and I just can't move through it sometimes. What I'm trying to say is I'm having a hard time dealing with the chaos of just doing practical things and things that need to get done. And I'm trying to avoid, 5 years from now, God willing, or whoever willing, that I'm still alive, that I'm not driving a 2006 Camry and still putting sandbags in front of my garage on a deck that is slowly crumbling in my backyard that I can't step on. So, just trying to take care of myself. The last time I talked to you, I had a health event. I tried running in 100-degree heat after not running for a while up a hill, and my body just fucking gave out. 2 people, after I talked about that, tweeted or emailed me, dude, those are symptoms. You're having a heart attack. Those are angina symptoms. Those are, heart-clogged symptoms. I'm like, oh, fuck. I hadn't put that one in my brain, really. Oh, look, I know I got high cholesterol, but I'm 51. Here's the problem. It's very hard to distinguish the difference between anxiety symptoms and real problems. And after a certain age, you just have to honor the symptoms and go fucking deal with it. We went through this together with my tingling hands. Fine. But at some point, you just got to, you got to go. So I'm an anxious mess. That's a given, but maybe these are real. Well, anyways, that sent me into a panic because I couldn't breathe that day, and I woke up, I didn't feel great either. Chest was tight, the tingling, whatever. And then after reading those emails, I'm like, fuck, I'm gonna make a doctor's appointment. So I call the health center that my insurance is at, the Bob Hope Health Center, and I get the operator, the woman who makes appointments for both of the health centers, and I'm like, yeah, I had an event, I guess, was running, and my arms went kind of numbish, and I couldn't breathe, and I just wanted to see if I can get in to see my doctor today. And she goes, you need to go to the emergency room. And I'm like, no, I think I'm all right. I mean, she's like, can you breathe? Are you breathing? And I'm like, yeah, I can breathe. I'm okay. But I'm still like a little tight. And you should go to the emergency room. And I'm like, really? She goes, you might be having a heart attack and you might go to the doctor. There's an 8:45 appointment, but you might get there and they're going to send you to the emergency room. And I'm like, holy fuck, maybe I'm having a heart attack. Maybe she knows something I don't know. And I'm right, I'm on the precipice. So I'm like, what emergency room? She's like, I don't know, Cedars-Sinai. And I'm like, that's not close to me. Now I got to look up an emergency room. See, that in that moment, that was my biggest concern. Not like, do I need to go, but like, oh my God, where is it? I think you should know where your hospital in your neighborhood is. So after she freaks me out entirely, I get the appointment and I go, and my doctor's out of town, but I get a good, nice doctor. And we do all the tests that they can do, the EKG, the blood pressure, the pulse, the oxygen in the pulse, whatever the fuck that is, the breathing, the stethoscope business. I'm fine there. But I go, look, I had this thing when I was exercising. She goes, okay, you can go to a cardiologist. So I'm going to a cardiologist today. Let you know how that goes. This is what I'm doing with my 16 years sobriety and my success. I'm freaking out because they're going to be digging up my driveway, staining my deck. I'll be driving a new car that I'm going to be completely neurotic about, and I'm going to a cardiologist. Congratulations, Mark. Congratulations. Now let's talk to the lovely Lynn Shelton, film director.
I shoot movies in 7.5, 10, 12
I like
days.
your movies.
Do you?
I do.
Oh, I was hoping you might.
No, I do. And I watched one this morning.
Which one?
Touchy Feely.
Ah.
I've seen like three, I think. Three. I didn't see the Big Shot movie with big shots in it. Which, like now Lynn Shelton's a big shot.
Hey, it was just it was my. You know who was most excited and jealous about me doing a rom-com with Keira Knightley and Chloe Moretz? Joe Swanberg. He's like, "Are you kidding me? I would love to do that. You're gonna have so much fun." And I was worried. Am I selling out, man? Like, what
are you selling out?
Whatever, I was like my opportunity.
But it's the question you asked, though. You
well,
said it.
Sure, of course I did.
It.
Well, I was wondering, it was the first movie I've ever directed that I didn't write, and I was like, is it going to feel like one of my movies? Like, what am I doing? It's sort of new territory. It's much bigger budget than I've worked with, although because I've done so much TV, I was comfortable with all the trailers and stuff, but still, it's like a different thing for my baby, one of my babies. And he actually made me feel great. He's like, you can go back to doing your little shitty art things, whatever, like improv movies, whatever. But this is going to be great.
Said the guy who has not done that yet.
Exactly, but who I think is dying to, would love to. Oh, yeah, absolutely. He wants to try everything.
He's a great guy.
He is.
We were in Chicago and we were taping my special at the Vic, and Bobcat was directing it, Goldthwait, and we just called Joe.
How many Bobcats are there, by the way?
I know. I don't know. You're from Seattle. You've been around. There might be a couple Bobcats.
Yeah, for sure.
Someone who I don't know, who you only know as Bobcat.
All right.
But no, we called Joe and we were like, we want to do some backstage shit, just some stuff. Are you around? He's like, yeah, I'll come down. So he was shooting on both. He was just wandering around with me, being Joe Swanberg.
Awesome.
But okay, how do you differentiate then between like selling out and just doing television? Or is all the television you do like on the level of artistic and creative expression that you need for yourself?
Oh God, no. No, the TV directing was always meant to be, a way to pay the rent and the bills while I so give me the freedom that I can continue to make, independent stuff. Here's the thing I love about television. It keeps me on the set. I love being on set.
Yeah.
I love directing. I love directing actors.
You do?
I live for it. It's my favorite thing, working with actors. It's fantastic. And when I do my own movies, I'm like, my for a while there, I mean, I made 6 movies in 9 years.
Yeah.
And, 14 months between them. That's not a long time in sort of filmmaking.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good
filmmaking
rate.
years. In director years.
Swanberg,
yeah.
aside.
Well, he's making a movie while he's sleeping.
He's
got
making
a camera on.
5 movies at the same time. But even so, that's over a year that I'm not on set, right?
Yeah.
So TV gets me on set, and as long as I'm really lucky, because I've worked on all these shows where people like each other and the work is fun and it's good, and and I get to work with people that. But I had a revelation. I think you'll appreciate.
Okay.
Maybe not.
No, probably will. I like revelations.
I'm kind of obsessed with a little bit with Chopped, this show, and
you're just coming into that.
I kind of am. I'm a little late to the party. And
really?
Yeah. I mean, the last couple of years or whatever.
Yeah.
But I'll sort of binge watch it when I can, and I realized very recently, oh my God, this is why I love television directing, because it's like Chopped. It's like I come in and I'm given my basket of ingredients.
Yeah, right.
I got a script.
Right.
I'm just handed a script. I'm handed a cast.
Yeah.
Here's a crew
right.
that you've never met.
Right. And the kitchen you're not familiar with.
Exactly. I roll up my sleeves. I just got to make the best meal I can. You know. And it's really that really is it. It's invigorating and it's fun. But I'm not the admiral of the fleet. I'm the captain of the ship because, the writer is the king in TV. And I got to say, in Seattle, there's this great filmmaking community. Seattle is where I live, and there are a bunch of filmmakers and all, the crew that have crewed my films and all the other filmmakers. Those are my buds. Like, those are everybody that I hang out with and I love.
You never lived down here?
No.
Huh.
I just come down in my little Kia Soul and spend some time working and then go back up.
You're from Seattle.
Yeah, raised in Seattle. Really, really, really kind of obsessively love Seattle. Yeah. And
I spent time there. I know that place.
Spent time?
Yeah, I got an ex from there.
Ah.
You know my ex.
Yes, I do. Mm-hmm. And that makes me feel really dumb, too, because I worked with your ex for quite a while.
Yeah.
only just recently somebody pointed out to me that she was your ex. I had
She's
no
certainly
idea.
not going to volunteer it.
Nope, she didn't. And
are you making a movie?
I don't do like deep Googling.
Yeah.
It's we have been in the throes of developing a film, and then and now she's kind of going back and
reworking the script.
It. Yeah.
That's a good story.
It's an amazing story.
Yeah, and do you know that whole area? Did you grow up in that? Where'd you grow up in Seattle?
I grew up in a very white part of town. Always, I moved around. Most of Seattle is very, very white.
What part?
Well, let's see. I was raised when I was in high school, I was living in Maple Leaf, and then Wedgwood.
Yeah?
And Ravenna. Yeah, so kind of northwest.
Did your old man work for Boeing or something?
No, never had that connection. My dad is a lawyer who then turned into a mediator. He's now been doing mediation, which is
for people that want to
even better.
Leave each other? That kind of mediation?
No. Like disputes between an insurance company and an aggrieved person or something like that. And
it's more diplomatic. It's nice, decent-minded.
It is, and
practice.
A lot cheaper. It avoids a lot of. Yeah, it's great. It's really, and he feels he's really good at it and feels really good at it. It's interesting. I didn't think that I had a real connection to what my parents do.
Yeah.
Until, and then I realized, actually, that's like a people person thing. And, being able to collaborate and stuff. You got to. And then my mom.
You sought that out? You retrofitted that? Oh, I am like him. I work with many people and I'm diplomatic. And
these revelations come to me a little, I'm a little bit late.
How am I their child?
I don't need to. Exactly. Well, because there's no, artsy fartsy stuff going on with them. But his two brothers, one is a poet and one is a sculptor, actually lives down here. So I always identified strongly with them, and my mom is the same way. She's got a PhD in developmental psychology and ended up working in administrating early childhood education funds and all,
that all sounds very creative to me.
It is. And then the psychology thing, like those are my favorite classes in college because I want to know how people work and how they tick. And
that's what I like about your movies is that you don't hit anybody over the head. Like I always end up crying for some reason, touchy feely. I was squirting out tears this morning.
Oh man,
at the end.
Well, that I can't even tell you what that means to me. Right?
Really?
Yeah, Josh Pais, man.
Yeah, it's like it's at first you're like, is he mentally challenged or infantile? But then you realize it's just this weird kind of highly emotional but closed. It's hard to be closed off and highly emotional,
as it turns out. Yeah,
but he does it. Like, he's an interesting actor.
He's a really interesting actor. I mean, he's the kind of guy, if you start digging into his filmography, and he tends to play these supporting character roles, and his range is insane.
He's one of those guys where you're like, oh, that guy. I knew him, but I didn't know where from.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you find these, like the first time I became really obsessed with him was Mike White made this movie called Year of the Dog with Molly Shannon starring, and Josh plays her boss. Yeah. And he just had this rhythm. He took all this time, and he had, Mike gave him all this room to be that character, and I just was like, who is this guy? I was so obsessed with him.
You gotta use that guy.
Yeah, and then we happened to meet, in a green room somewhere, and I kind of gushed about him, and he was very, he was very graceful.
Yeah,
Oh, and then it came out. I was with my amazing editor, Nat Sanders, and he dropped that I had directed Hump Day, which Josh had just seen, and so he, the tables were turned, and he started gushing, and so it was like, well, we have to work together, and then so I wrote that part for him specifically, and the other part for Rosemary DeWitt in Touchy Feely.
And you've used her a couple times.
Yeah, she's
also like
incredible.
An alter ego kind of person?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, that film was a film that
Touchy
Feely was a film that was inside of me that I had to make because it was a very personal film. I've never felt more vulnerable making a movie.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, where does something like that start? How do you move through those feelings and come up with that story? Why that story? It was so close to you?
Well, I wanted to do a bunch of things with that movie. I wanted to try to make a film with more than 2 or 3 people. I wanted to have an ensemble.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I wanted to interweave stories, have parallel editing where you go back and forth between different storylines.
You'd never done that before?
I hadn't done it in my own work. I'd always followed one straight linear story.
Because you had more control, or you were more comfortable with that?
It was just what I did. Yeah, it was just what I had done so far.
It was the way you wrote.
Yeah, it was the way I thought, the way I wrote, the way
yeah.
the narrative worked for me. And so Touchy Feely was a way to do that. And to get out of the one location. I mean, I had done a couple movies in a row, 3 movies in a row, actually, because My Effortless Brilliance was my second movie, and that was also...
Which one?
Like, in it. It's called My Effortless Brilliance.
Yeah.
It's on, Amazon and iTunes and stuff. So my very first... I've made 6 movies. My first one was, like, I wrote a script, and I cast people, and mostly all local actors in Seattle. They were all theater actors, and I had been in the theater. I'd been an actor, and so I just kind of, like, really I wanted them to feel loved. And even in the audition process, like, I'd had been traumatized by going to auditions and
Seattle,
feeling like shit. Yeah, in Seattle when I was young and still, and then in New York, I moved to New York. I was in New York in the 90s.
All right, so maybe we should go back.
All right.
And load this up so we can get to Touchy Feely, the most personal movie you've made.
Yeah.
Instead of talk about it out of the gate.
Okay.
So you're a little kid in Seattle. Do you have siblings?
I have a brother who's 5 years younger. And then when I was 16 or 17, my dad married my stepmom. So I was 8. My folks got divorced. Mm-hmm. And ended up, it's one of those relationships it's really hard for me to imagine them together.
Right. Yeah.
My mom and stepdad definitely
they're
fit.
good.
My dad and stepmom
So they
definitely
found people
fit.
they love.
One side totally introverted, the other side totally extroverted.
But they were reasonably good raising you separately.
I think so. It's funny because I have I don't have any traumatizing memories of the divorce, but I sort of remember thinking growing up things like, oh, it will be very interesting for me to be able to experience these 2 different environments. I just sort of don't remember really having a problem with it. And that whole idea of kids, feeling like, oh, it's their fault. Like, I was like, why would you think it was your fault? It's nothing to do with you. I was like, I didn't understand. So you
knew that then.
I thought
at 8.
That's what I remember, being very mature about it. Sure. And then in retrospect, I found out recently that I was kind of a little shit. And when we moved into this new house, or it was with the first time maybe that my stepdad moved in with us, I drew a map. I don't remember this, but I supposedly presented my parents, my mom and stepdad, with a map of where they were allowed in the house to kiss. Shit like that.
Right.
With the new guy. Yeah.
Right.
And my God,
seemed
he
like
was
fairly self-protective and a decent boundary for an 8 or 9-year-old.
I suppose, but
well, why wouldn't you be uncomfortable with your mom kissing some new guy on some level?
I know.
Yeah. It seemed to make perfect sense. I don't know that maybe you should maybe it was empowered, not shitty.
Yeah.
That's how I'm going to spin it. But if you want to see yourself as a little shit, you could do that.
Thank you. They did end up with who they were supposed to end up with.
Was your brother like a save the marriage kid?
My brother, I think, my mother told me that she just had a really hard time getting pregnant. So I was a love child. They were really young when they had me. Got pregnant when they were both Oberlin college students. And
That's
I was
really young. Grad school or undergrad?
No, undergrad. I was my dad's 21st birthday present.
Wow.
My mom had just turned 22.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't know if they would have stayed together if it hadn't been for me, but they decided to make a go of it. And then my brother came along a few years later, and then it all kind of went to shit.
How's he doing?
It was all for the best, though. He's great. He's a transportation planner, also in Seattle, with a couple kids. I think we were far enough apart as we were growing up that we just never felt. I don't feel like I got really close with him until we became adults.
That's good though. It's good now.
Which is fine.
You got nieces and nephews and whatnot.
Yeah.
And you got kids.
And then I got one kid, and he's got a couple of kids, so it's nice because I only have one. I only have the only kid, and so it's nice that he has my kid Milo has somebody to have a shared history with a little bit, and they get along. Yeah, I never had cousins. The same town.
It's nice.
Yeah.
That's what people used to do.
Yeah, they don't have to live together, but they can see each other enough.
Generations. Are your folks still there?
Yeah, my folks are all there.
So they got grandparents,
kids
and
your
everybody's husband's
there.
Kids, or your husband's got other kids?
No. His parents.
Okay.
Yeah, my in-laws.
Right, but you grew up before the tech money came in, so it was sort of like like not that big a deal, that city.
Yeah, you want to take a look at what Seattle used to be. There's a great movie, Cinderella Liberty, with James Caan.
It's a great movie.
Oh, I love that movie.
But it's sort of interesting, though, those 70s movies really, they seem to be tonally appropriate for the Pacific Northwest, because like even if you watch 5 Easy Pieces on the road, like towards the end where he just gets on that truck, that there's some dark, weird kind of thing. I have a real emotional. I can't identify the attraction to that. I spent 2 years in Alaska as a kid.
Oh, really?
But you feel like you're closer to the top of the world, and but not in a good way necessarily. There's sort of a foreboding to it. Is there, or is it me?
No, I could totally. I see what you're. I mean,
every time I even see Seattle, even looking at it in your movie today, there's an intensity to it.
Yeah, there's a resonance.
Yeah, with the big trees and the rocks and the shoreline and all that shit.
And the skies.
Gray.
I mean, we have the most. It's gray, but it's not just a blanket. I remember really being surprised at how much I missed the skies in New York. I was there for almost a decade, and when it gets overcast, it's just like they have a lot of really ugly, flat, glary skies.
Right.
And Seattle, it's never like
huge.
that. It's just like, it's these beautiful textured, shapes of all different colors of gray, but also, other hues in there.
That's what I feel like. It's the top of the world.
Gorgeous.
Like you feel like there's a weight to it all, I don't know. But I feel it.
And in this, and you also have that, it's almost like Scandinavia in that you get these super, super long nights.
Yeah.
In the winter, and then really long days in the summer, and I spend like I'll do a pilot. I'll shoot a pilot or something down here. I'm here for like a few weeks, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's not like that down here. Like that, it's much more even. When you're
it's bad. It's like eventually you just don't even know time is passing, and you're like, where's my life gone?
And the weather never changes.
Yeah, no, it's just you spend a lot of time in your car, and then one day you're like, wow, 10 years went by. Did I do anything? Let me look myself up. So all right, so you're this precocious kid giving your parents, bossing them around in Seattle, but apparently you're not a depressive. You don't seem to wear the weight of Seattle on you.
Well, that's what Touchy Feely was actually dealing with. I did go through this period of depression about 5 years ago.
5 years ago.
Well, I've had I've had my little bouts. I mean, I remember there were moments in college when I was curled up in a ball in the back of the closet. I definitely have had these moments in my life, but it got especially bad about, the peak of it was about 5-6 years ago. It was right around when I was making Your Sister's Sister, oddly. So weird that as I was shooting it and as I was editing it, the whole time I was just kind of going, is this going to be likable? Like, I can't tell if this is a good movie.
That was your style of depression, not like, what's the point of doing any of this?
No, it was that. I had that. It was very shameful for me because my work, ever since I started making features, it was like, oh my God, this is what I was always meant to do. I sort of totally, and it was late in life. I was 39 when I made my first feature. And so everything sort of came to me in I sort of self-actualized quite late in life, and
me too.
Felt it's late bloomers unite. I love it. Never thought, always knew I was going to be an artist. Never thought in a million years I'd be able to make a living at it. Yeah, and I was fine with that. I'd always part-time teach, I'd part-time edit, I'd whatever do to pay the bills, and then just keep making my art. And then I have always been at my happiest and most deeply joyful when I'm making my work, right? So here I am in one of the most beautiful places on earth, which is an island north of Seattle in the San Juan Islands. And
which one?
I promised not to tell, so I can't tell.
Oh.
This is the way we're able to get access to that location, was by not promising not to tell exactly where it was. And with this unbelievable cast, Emily Blunt, Rosemary DeWitt, Mark Duplass, we have a great, I've written 80 pages of a script that it's going to be a great film. I've got my favorite people, my crew up there. I mean, the whole thing was sort of perfect.
Yeah.
And I would literally wake up in the morning and be like, what's the point of this? Why are we doing this? Making a movie. Why? I mean, it was,
but it wasn't dread.
I mean, it was close enough. It was really, it was bad, and I felt I felt so much shame about it because it was such a mystery to me. I mean, it was like everything on paper is going so beautifully, right? Everything you have, your heart's desire, and you can't feel the joy. I mean, it just drove me crazy. And that's what Touchy Feely really was about, what is this thing that you can't talk about to anybody because it feels somehow there's this deep shame associated with it. this mystery.
But you didn't. Were you quick to sort of, even in exploring it, decide that it was founded in, like, because in Touchy-Feely, these are people that are not following their hearts or had gotten locked off from them somehow, as opposed to saying, like, I have a chemical imbalance. I mean, experiencing that weird feeling of emptiness when everything is going well is not that unusual for creative people.
I know. It was new for me. It was horrible because it was new. I wasn't used to it. And it was definitely chemical, but it was interesting because I came at it from this very, like I recognized the feeling from the one day. I was really lucky for many, many years where I would have one black day a month, a day before my period or whatever. It was like this sort of hormonal thing. Yeah. And my period would come and I'd go, oh, great, that's what it was. Thank God.
It's amazing how some women are surprised by that every fucking month.
Every month. Every month.
There's something wrong with me.
What is wrong? What's going on? And
life is horrible.
Like, oh, right. Okay. Yeah. God, you idiot. Yeah. Well, having a regular cycle too, it's hard. Anyway, but I recognize that. So I was like, okay, this is clearly a hormonal thing. This is physiological.
Right.
Let's look, at what to do. And I remember I was like, oh, you're not eating enough protein and you need the amino acids to make the neurotransmitters. And so I did all this stuff and took my multivitamin, my B, multi B complex, whatever. I did all that stuff and I was still having a problem. And I remember somebody telling me, I don't think it's just physiological. I don't think it's just, and then I started exploring, meditation and trying to figure out other things to, kind of other ways in. Like
massage,
like Reiki, actually.
Potions.
I'd always wanted to do Reiki, and that was my excuse was, I have to do it for research because I'm making this movie where there's going to be Reiki. And so I was able to finally explore that.
But were you dark when you made Touchy-Feely?
I was sort of coming out of it, so I wasn't super in the peak of it really was Your Sister, and then only after I'd actually finished completing making it was I able to say, oh, I really love this movie. I'm really proud of it. It was sort of, it was almost like
did the work.
Well, yeah, it was almost like I realized, I heard somebody talking about postpartum depression once. And she talked about how she sees this beautiful baby. She saw it after it was born and was understood objectively that it was a lovable being and that she should love it and it was lovable and couldn't feel that connection to it. It was very much like that for me with that film where, and then only later was I able to actually.
But not with your kid.
My kid, I didn't have postpartum depression. I loved him right away.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, I noticed though also in Touchy-Feely, because it's fresh in my head, that, those weird kind of intense close-up shots of skin, and then there was another shot when she was kind of tripping of concrete breaking down, and that it struck me as this sort of realization of temporal, that everything's sort of temporary and decay and life, and what does it mean?
Yeah, and the connection.
Did I read into that?
No, not at all. And the connection, I was trying to draw a connection between the cracks and the concrete, and the cracks, those
I got it.
Super close-up cracks that
it's
you
the only
see
two
in your
close-ups.
skin.
Delivered. Message delivered.
Thank you.
But... But
yeah, she's not 20, and there's a reason that character isn't 20. And what was going on for that character, Rosemary DeWitt's character in Touchy-Feely, is that my concept with her was that she had been in a relationship that hadn't been so, she's sort of been suppressing her own identity and her own fulfillment, in her 20s, into her 30s, and then was
entered the healing arts
pretty newly,
which is what they do.
Well, she gets out of the, she gets divorced and goes, hits the reset button at 36 or whatever, and goes in massage school and just puts on a whole new life. This is backstory. She, goes out with guys who are younger. She's supposed to, the guy she's with, Scoot McNairy, is, younger dude, somebody who doesn't have all the cares of the world, maybe her ex was like an insurance agent or something, whatever. She sort of had, he was who her parents would have approved of, and this is somebody they wouldn't approve of.
Just working
if they
some
were
stuff
still
out.
Yeah. And so she's really she's found this, she's going through her own sexual revolution. She's really, and she feels like, I'm doing it. I've got a thirst for life. And, but this depression that comes on is really like her soul knocking. It's like, oh,
not biological.
You're not all this living life and screwing your boyfriend in
Right.
your brother's bathroom and,
Right. Yeah.
trying to be a rebel. Like, it's really not what it's all about. Like, there's other shit that needs to be attended to, and so it's sort of like,
it's a weird feeling at a certain age where you realize that through habit and fear that you are disconnected from something.
yeah.
Why? But let me ask you this:
Yeah.
why? Because there's another interesting part of the movie that I want to know if you thought of it. Mm-hmm. That why a dentist?
Oh, I think it was honestly a holdover because Josh and I that actor and I had been talking for a couple of years about I had been throwing around ideas, and for a while we actually were on the road of making another film, and the character was going to be a dentist.
Yeah,
and so we had talked a lot about who this guy might be, and it was this funny idea where he was actually going to end up becoming a cult leader, and so this is like a little bit of a reformation of this character we'd already been talking about.
Right.
And I can't remember who brought it up because we really were going back and forth about what the occupation would be, and he might have come up with dentist or I might have. I can't remember.
But what's interesting about it?
Things.
Like I've talked about this with one other person whose father was a dentist, but there was a passage in I think John Updike's Couples, and it's about a dentist. One of the characters in it is a dentist, and there's this whole passage about how the immediacy and relentless nature of decay is something that dentists have to deal with every day over and over again. The sort of that's what you're fighting.
Wow.
Like that like you see it in the mouths every day, that this decay.
Yeah.
That and it always struck me as a very sort of weird existential realization. I tried to get it out of my friend whose dad was a dentist, but he just wouldn't have it. But I think metaphorically or symbolically, there's something about within the movie that works like that. So if you wanted to say you were aware of that from here on out,
I will. I'm stealing that. I do that all the time, by the way, because I make films on this very gut level.
But doesn't that read though? Doesn't that read?
Oh, totally scans. And the other thing I think somebody else probably pointed out to me as well was the intimacy of, it's for both of their occupations. They have these incredibly intimate acts with strangers.
Sure.
Here
open
she is
your
with
mouth.
this, and then open your mouth. I'm coming in.
Yeah.
It's incredibly intimate.
Yeah.
And yet, there's this issue with a real connection.
Intimacy.
Right? Intimacy.
The trust and all that.
And so talking about intimacy, you just reminded me, even though we've sort of skipped ahead somehow again.
You did it.
Very nonlinear.
You
Sorry.
did it.
That's the way my brain works.
No, it doesn't. We just established that your brain works linearly. Linearly. Oh, I can't do it.
The way I got through the vulnerability that I felt in making that movie was coming to both my crew and my cast and saying, I'm like laid bare making this thing. And
what about your husband?
What about my husband?
What about didn't you? Does he enter the equation when you're all sad and laid bare with your crew? I mean, did you hip him to the issues? Or you just
sure.
Okay. All right, fine.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He's totally, but
he's on board. He gets it. He's on the same page.
But he's not on set with me.
What does he do?
So, he is right now. He's making furniture in our garage.
And wood furniture, working the surfaces.
Gorgeous. It's not a large garage, so he's able to make like coffee tables.
Oh.
And although I think he's going to make a bed frame and then assemble it elsewhere
with found wood, with wood from salvaged barns and things.
Sometimes
he's good with the surfaces and the finishes. And
he is. He had a really interesting. We've been together forever, and it's
since you were a kid.
Well, I would consider that age at the time to be a kid. I think I was. We started living together when I was 24, and then got married at 28. And that's
pretty good.
Time ago.
Yeah, but that's 4 years. It seemed like you meant it.
Oh yeah,
you were in. You didn't get married 10 years in.
But the changes that we've gone through at the time, he had been plucked. His original plan was to get an engineering degree and be an industrial designer, but then he got sort of plucked from the masses, and he became an MTV VJ. And
which one?
Kevin Seal is his name. He was on from like 89 to 90. No, 87 to 91.
Right.
And he
you met
we have
him
a
in
friend
New York?
who no, he actually is from Seattle too. So we were we knew each other there. And then I kind of followed him out. I was like, yeah, I'm going to work in the theater. I'm going to be an actress in the theater. And then I was like, and I'm going to also figure out what the hell's going on between me and this guy. So he was able to then after parlay that into like voiceover talent kind of corporate commercial stuff. And then I dragged him back to Seattle when I was quite pregnant, and there just isn't enough work of that sort
so now
to make a living. So he went to industrial design school, and now he's in the garage.
He's in the garage.
And he worked in a real actual shop getting paid good money. But then when I got really busy in my career, that place he was working kind of went downhill, went bankrupt actually. And so when he was looking around for a new job, we realized the most important job you could be doing actually is taking care of our kid who's deaf and who needs, was going to a lot of different, driving him to the special school. And so, it turns out he's a much better full-time parent than I am.
Great.
And, it suits him. They're like best friends. Yeah, it's great. It's so great. So I can leave without feeling, I know
you know what you're doing. Here's the
fires
list.
Are burning.
Right.
He's the one
Here
who
are the numbers.
Exactly.
All right. So you tell your crew that you're laid bare.
Yeah. So
open.
I remember the first day we did a table read of this script that I'd written, and there were parts of it that I was like, I just want to skip over this part because it just made me feel like I felt like I was going to vomit,
Really?
And then I was like, no, Lynn, it's okay. Like we're going to do it, And I don't know. It was, and I just was really honest. I said, look, the revelation I had during this in a very deep way.
Which part?
The part where she describes losing her virginity.
Right.
Which is kind of
in the house with the Livingston.
Life. Yeah. It was kind of just
right out of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Made me feel pretty. Yeah.
So you were seeking closure with this script in a way.
Yeah,
in some weird way.
I was a movie that I was like, okay, I gave myself permission to make a movie that was not going to be accessible or commercial or, one of the reasons that I was the editor was that I started as an editor and I wanted to see if I could still do it. But also I didn't want to, I couldn't.
But it's interesting you would think that because it's got like 3 happy endings.
Yeah, but the places it goes and the people at it, it's hard to make a compelling narrative with really passive aggressive or just passive, closed off people. It's just, and it wasn't everybody, but half of the cast.
But that's sort of a question of something you brought up earlier, which is on my mind because I saw Annie Baker play in New York. I saw The Flick. This idea of space and not over explaining.
Yeah.
And finding the truth in emotion in in space.
Yeah.
Between people.
Yeah.
You're aware of that.
So aware of that. So interested in that. So interested in not over spelling everything out. Like, I just gave you a rundown on the backstory of this character.
Right.
Like, that's just a taste of the incredible, up the wazoo backstory we have for everybody in every relationship.
But that's your relationship with actors. You give them
that? It is,
that?
but it's really important for me, too, to have them have these a really clear sense of who they are so that when the chemistry between them is palpable, or the tensions from the past is right there, and you can feel it. I don't want the audience to know all that crap. They don't have to know all that shit. If they get a little bits and pieces, it's fine. But for me, it's all about creating that.
When do you
reality.
tell them that?
Oh, it's months. We're usually or weeks before shooting. Yeah, there's a lot of talking.
Sit down with all of them.
Yeah, or a lot of phone. I'm up in Seattle, so I'm on the phone with them a lot. I mean, but like your Sisters are a great example. I mean, I developed those characters with Marc and Emily, and it was actually another actress before Rose
But the script is the script.
But I do it in a kind of upside down I do it in an upside down way where I'm sort of developing the script alongside the development of the characters because I want to know who the characters are. I have to know who the characters are before I can believably write what they would believably do in a scene, what they would say, how they would act. And the more you know about the characters, the easier it is to write what they would do, because it's like then you can just sort of improvise the scene out in your head because you know who they are.
Right.
But, I don't like to throw people into an improv situation when I don't have any of that stuff.
Right.
They're just like, and then it's like a little song, it's
which
like
a lot of people do.
Soft shooting. Yeah. And it drives me, Because I
would think that most people that do those kind of movies where it's loose like that, they don't get that type of backstory. They don't get that type of direction, and you can sort of feel it.
Yeah. I feel like I can. Yeah.
Yeah. And also, like, I don't think that that's a unique thing for a director to do, to put that much collaboration and time into making these characters come to life. Most people I've talked to or I've seen, there's a trust with the actor to just do his job.
Right. Exactly.
And I don't know that that's always good.
It's less fun for me, too. Because, again, my favorite thing about making movies is working with actors. So the more excuse I have to get in there with them and figure that stuff out. But again, it's going to feed the narrative.
But is that because,
for me.
Do you see yourself as a failed actress?
No.
Good.
Not at all.
Well, you wanted to be an actor.
When I was an actor, I started taking I was very serious in my, I started when I was like 11 taking classes and doing whatever I could do. That was when it started. I took a how to be a clown class.
You did?
Yeah, and I was
Do you remember
super
any of that?
shy. Oh yeah. What I remember is that the liberation of putting literally, it was makeup, but it was a mask, and it was like, white face, and walking around Seattle Center on my stilts and interacting with people
at 11
in a way, that I never.
Stilts?
That was like our graduation or whatever. It was a way that they were like this high, that I never could have done in real life, and so it was this outlet. It was a way for me to interact with people, and there were two things that I did, like safe ways that I found to interact with other humans and connect with other humans. It was through, I could be somebody else completely, utterly on a stage and make that connection with an audience and with other actors on the stage. That was just like buzzy stuff. It was amazing. And then there was also photography. So in high school, again, I was in this brief period of mandatory busing. So even though I grew up in white neighborhoods, the reason I connected so strongly to Mishna's I'm Down is that I was bused to from 6th grade through high school to the Central District where the African American community was, and it was a very the culture was very African American of those schools that I went to, and middle school through high school, and so I went to the same high school Jimi Hendrix went to, and Quincy Jones, and Garfield High School, and
you were a darkroom rat.
And I was a darkroom rat, and I remember I would hide behind my telephoto lens of my Pentax 2000, and I would like K1000, and I would find these ways in. I would have captured these intimate moments of vulnerability, across the gym with some guy, and so it was the safe place to be. But I was still always looking for connection, like we always are. Right? But between that and then the acting, which enabled me to just like become somebody else and not worry. I was very self-conscious,
That's interesting, though, that the photography was the outlet. I did photography in high school, too, and I didn't think about it the same way because it's not really connecting. It's almost like stealing.
You're
moments.
Stealing and you're observing.
Yeah, but you're the freak with the camera.
But
There's that girl with the camera.
Yeah, exactly. But I still felt connected. I felt weirdly connected when you can find these moments of vulnerability. Unguarded moments. You feel like, they're not so scary.
Sure.
They are somebody I could, maybe I could have a conversation with someday or whatever,
Right.
And so that was a really important tool for me, developmentally, I think. And
it's very odd, though, to see someone, like, sometimes when I overhear conversations that, are charged, I feel like I'm in violation of something. Like,
for sure. Which is why I kind of stopped making docs, because I did documentaries for a long time, and that's an uncomfortable zone for me, where you're sort of maybe you're shooting something that the person doesn't even realize that they're exposing themselves in some way, or the way you present it. It's like, it makes me nervous,
So there you are. You're doing the photographs and you're acting.
The failed actress thing. So I get a BA in drama, School of Drama, at the School of Drama. It was actually for a year. I was at Oberlin for a year, and then went to the University of Washington. But
it's interesting because of what you're saying, because I talked to Sir Ian McKellen in here.
Oh my God.
But because it was interesting that what we came upon, and whether he did it on my show or not for the first time, was that because he was so heavily closeted culturally as a gay man at the time he was coming up, that he identifies, Shakespeare and acting as a way to have the emotions that people in relationships that they didn't have to be culturally ashamed of to have them.
Wow.
So I thought that was kind of...
It is. It's this conduit for stuff that, I found it, to be extremely therapeutic, to be able to do. And then when I moved to New York after college,
you went to first Oberlin?
I went to Oberlin for a year
in the acting program.
The very first in acting and also creative writing. I was a poet too, so it was actually my very first art form.
I feel like we have a lot in common.
Yeah,
I'll show you some of my poems, maybe.
Awesome.
I have only 2 or 3 that I'm proud of. So. I occasionally write a poem now.
I love poems. I wish I wrote
poems.
I do, and
really?
I wish I wrote
poetry?
More. It's one of the things I just went through and culled a whole bunch of books, realizing, okay, this is ridiculous. I don't need, and I couldn't give a single poetry book away. It was like, no, those are sacred.
Seems special.
Absolutely, you should always have as much poetry in the house as possible. But so I went for creative writing. I got a really bad experience where I found out later that the guy hadn't even read my samples, but I was dying I'd been writing all through through high school, and I really wanted some feedback, and the poetry teacher basically said, you can't, I never let freshmen in for a reason, but he kind of dismissed my poems, and I found out later he didn't even read the ones that I'd submitted to him.
How'd you find that
out? I can't remember, some inside way. It was, and then I stopped writing because of that for like a really long time. It was so dumb. But yeah, I had a hard time. Anyway, so I was an actor. Well,
you had a hard time. What happened?
Adolescence kind of did a number on me, which it does a lot for a lot
didn't
of
fit in,
young women.
Oh, okay.
No, there's this book called Reviving Ophelia. Do you know about this book?
No.
It was a huge. Boy, I talk about so many revelations on this show. It's a little embarrassing, but I was writing the script of my first feature, which is really about the way that we are different selves in different points in our lives. Mm-hmm. And the pre and post-adolescent selves were something I was looking back on and was like, wow, that was fascinating, because those were like polar opposite kind of personalities when I was in my late 30s. I was looking back at that. And then I was telling a friend about this script I was writing, and she said, well, you got to read this book. And it was like, oh, I wasn't the only one. Like, there's this thing that happens when you become sexualized for some girls, some women, a lot of them, where I just felt like I was the the top of my game when I was like 12, 13. And I was writing stories, writing poetry, painting,
confident,
playing music, acting, doing all this stuff, and taking photographs. And had such a clarity of vision and a confidence in my voice. And, and then, cut to like 20. I just...
what about 14, 15, 16?
Well, it was like a gradual grinding down, I think, And it wasn't anything to do with my folks. I was always told by both of them, you can do whatever you want. You can be whoever you want. You can be president. You can be an artist, whatever you want.
It was about the culture of high school.
Very feminist. And it was society, really, and this kind of become... Like, I got really big boobs, and I was very, like, people were... I felt... And I already had the tendency to be sort of self-conscious. No, that wasn't. I don't think I did. I was very androgynous and tomboy before. Then I felt sort of betrayed by my body. And like, what the fuck? That isn't who I am. And, and it felt like that was the first thing everybody noticed about me, even though I don't know if it was or not. And I started wearing tents. And then it got into this whole thing like, oh, were you looking at me? Don't look at me, Look at me. Look at, like that whole like, look at me, don't look at me, look at me. That's a kind of a thing that happens as well, I think. And then just the sexual charge, I think, of high school for sure. But I don't know. It just really, something about that really kind of ground out my sense of agency. And so there was really a period of time when all I really could do was act, because somebody else was telling. It was like I was a puppet. I was saying what other people told me to say.
And all this weird attention and self-consciousness diminished your confidence and creativity.
It did. And so I felt like there was this trickle. I didn't start directing feature films until I was 39 for a reason. I don't think I was capable of it back then, and I needed to shed some of that self-consciousness and gain a sense of maturity and a sense of authority.
It's funny. I have an ex from years ago who actually lives in Seattle. She's a sculptor, and when I met her in Boston, she's a real tough Jersey girl, and she used to bartend at a strip joint, but she wasn't a stripper. It was not her bag, and she quit, and I said, why did she quit? And she said, I got tired of men looking at me like I was meat.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it gets a little boring. But women, I knew so many women who could I remember this woman who was, women who would just relish their bodies and, and I remember, swim class and people, and I was just like, I was so horrified by my body. I was just really, I don't know what it was. It just, for me, it was really tough to get over.
And why'd the writing go away as a form of expression? Just because that idiot shut you down, basically?
I think a little bit because the idiot shut me down, and because I just sort of didn't have as much to say. I didn't feel like I had anything to say, or what I was.
You couldn't
had
process
to say
what we're talking about now.
Not at all. Yeah.
Because you weren't aware of it really.
Exactly. I was
right.
in it. I was too close to it. Yeah.
So acting became the thing.
So acting became the thing. Yeah. And it was a little bit my, again, my sort of secret shame that, is because it's really the only thing I can do right now. Like, I have to be an artist. I always knew I wanted to be an artist.
Yeah.
But, this was I was down to this. Like, this was all I could do. And then when I moved to New York to do it, it was when I started trying to make a living at it, it was like, oh, this sucks,
So you did a year at Oberlin.
A year at Oberlin.
And then you go to New York and go where?
No, I was at the School of Visual. I was at the School of Drama. I got a degree a BA in drama at the University of Washington. Then I moved to New York.
So you went back home after Oberlin. And then you went to New York with a degree in drama.
Yeah.
To be an actress on Broadway.
Yeah. Although not Broadway. I wanted to be at the New York Theater Workshop where they were doing Carol Churchill plays, and I saw my friend Garrett Dillahunt in Mad Forest, and I was like, oh my God, this is it. That's what I want. That's what I want. And then I found out how much those actors made, and that there was no way they could possibly pay the rent on that, on my dream job ever.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the, how do you, I don't get,
how is it?
What is this? It sucks.
So how long were you in New York?
I was there for 9.5 years.
So you stuck with it?
No, I didn't. So what I did was, after a couple years of doing and I did a lot of fun, cool downtown stuff, and then really and it had always been an addiction. Like that was really what it felt like. I was like, I have to be in a show. What's coming up next? I got to be in a show. And I really transferred my addiction to the darkroom. That was when I became really serious about photography. So at the International Center for Photography in New York, I started taking classes and and then built up enough of a body of work to get into grad school, the School of Visual Arts. I went to the
photography.
For photography. So my MFA was in photography and related media.
You got it. You like the chemistry of it all, and the light and the processing.
Yeah, and being and being the looker and not the looked at was much healthier for me.
And it was also a time where you had to know your chemicals and your papers and your films and your stocks.
Yeah, although it wasn't a super nerd out. Like, what I loved about, and luckily, I probably wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today if it weren't for the case that this was not a fine print. It wasn't all about the fine print. Like, I almost applied to Yale, but that was really all about getting the perfect darkroom technique. But it wasn't digital. It was starting. Digital was starting. Right. And that's why it was called an MFA in photography and related media, because they were just starting to learn.
But you knew your way around the darkroom.
I did, for sure. And I was going in doing, the Vivian Meyer, I always forget how to say her name, style photographs, Helen Levitt, Robin Frank. That was how I was started with street photography, black and white street photography. But then by the time I got out, I was somewhere straddling the line, I didn't really know, between video art and experimental film, because I was able to take those classes. And so I started in filmmaking by making these little handcrafted movies that I did everything myself. And I was shooting on Super 8 and then blacking out my bathroom and cracking it up with a hammer and hand developing and getting, solarizing it and just doing, really experimenting. It was pure self-expression. I wasn't thinking about an audience. I really wanted to be a serious artist.
So you're doing working the surface of the film and all that shit?
Yeah, but also exploring other things. Peggy Awesh was my thesis advisor. And so who
was she? Hit me to her.
She was sort of the Super 8 film, experimental film queen of the 80s. Mm-hmm. Did all kinds of really groovy,
and she was
crazy stuff.
She was your mentor.
Yeah,
at that time.
They encouraged you, or they required you to find a working artist that you admired to be your thesis advisor, as opposed to somebody on the staff.
Yeah,
it was great. And so I saw all of her work, and she introduced me to a whole bunch of other experimental filmmakers. And at the time, I was also going to see Bill Viola and Gary Hill and all these people. And so that was all kind of, I was looking for, I was doing all my own sound design and shooting and figuring out what
doing VHS
resonated
stuff
with me.
Too, like that.
Yeah, and I would I did VHS, but I also, so I was exploring, my first film was called White, and I just gotten married, and I was sort of uncomfortable with that, sort of reckoning with the idea of entering the institution of marriage, which I had a troubled, kind of. And so I was sort of, made my husband dress up, and I sort of wrapped him in this paper white wedding dress, and had him, swan around the roof of our apartment building, and then shot it, and then slowed it down, and then rescanned it. And I was just, I was just fucking around. I was just trying to figure out stuff.
Yeah, but the interesting thing is in your story that I don't always hear, which is that you were committed to art.
Totally.
And at some point you must have realized how obscure that would be as a life.
I did. There was a transition period. I came out of school. Digital editing was my marketable skill, and I was able to freelance edit. And then on the side, I would build up and part-time teach other people how to digital edit. And then I would take that money and I would go make these little movies. And in the meantime, like I started, there was a topic that I really wanted. Like my second feature film was this experimental documentary about the relationship between women and their body hair. So you can see the kind of stuff I was like futzing around with. Right, and my thesis film was like, looking at different levels of consciousness. But finally, there was this one piece that I wanted to make. This is what I'm trying to get at. Is there was a topic I wanted to actually have an audience. I wanted people to see it, and I wanted them to get it, and I wanted it to be accessible. And that was kind of a bridge for me.
Right. So it wasn't like I got to make a living, but it was more about like, refining your art to a bigger audience. Because when you're doing, real experimental art, whether it's theater or film or whatever, and you really start to talk to people who are teaching, you realize like, well, if I don't make the textbooks or the magazines, there's really no future in this at all. That it's such a small community. Yeah,
and that was okay with me. Like I really, it wasn't like, I have to be Bill Viola and get big gallery shows. Right. I just wanted to be true to myself as an artist.
Right. Okay.
And make stuff that nobody else could make, and to explore territory that was really interesting to me. But it wasn't until, and I almost had to kind of give myself permission to make work that would reach people.
Right.
It was almost, again, it was like a selling out thing. Like,
oh God,
are you selling,
the worst. It's
right?
like how every creative person does that to themselves.
The self-sabotage.
Well, I don't know if it's self-sabotage.
It's not in my comfort zone.
Right.
I have to be obscure.
It's an integrity thing.
Integrity,
It's sort of like, the idea when you're younger is that you don't want to take the easy way. But as you realize, as you get older, that mainstream, there's nothing easy about it. And but serving yourself was more important, even if you were fucking your life up.
Right. And I was happy to, I temped and was a, personal secretary or whatever up until throughout my 20s, and then said, okay, at 30, I can't do that anymore. And really made a. But
the portal in was about body hair. That was your.
The one that I wanted people to see was a few films later. It was.
But that's when you obviously started experimenting with documentary and your own, body issues and more feminine, if not feminist-driven stuff.
Yeah.
Identifying.
I was pretty feminist. It was definitely about trying to dismantle, showing the construction of gender, like basically sort of pointing at how much effort goes into making these smooth veneers of a feminine image on, in a fashion magazine or whatever. Like,
okay, yeah.
Oh, that just seems like that's so womanly. So actually, it takes a fuck of a lot of work to make it look like that,
And that's accessible.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah. But the movie wasn't, because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. So it looks okay, and the interviews are great, but like the sound quality is shitty. I was just like really just sort of trying stuff out. So, but the film that I really wanted, like I wanted it to be on that POV series on PBS.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever watched documentaries on that series, but I saw a bunch. I was inspired by that, and then I had this movie that I wanted to make about miscarriage, because I was trying to get pregnant for years and years, and then had a miscarriage on the way to that in that journey, and I felt so like. What is it? Blindsided. I didn't feel like by the miscarriage. I felt it had been so hard to get pregnant that I really thought once I was pregnant, I felt like, oh, I'm in a state of grace. Like this is amazing. This is magical. And then 20 weeks down the line, because it was a late miscarriage too, I was cramping up, and it's like, well, that's miscarriages for other people. Right. It's not for me, this is a special pregnancy. You don't understand. Like I earned this pregnancy. So I was really, 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 blindsided by it, and really just, it wasn't even in my, and then once I had one, all these people came out of the woodwork. It turned out I knew tons of people who had miscarriage, and I had no idea. And it's like a secret society, the secret sisterhood. And so many people either made you feel crazy by not acknowledging it at all, even though they had just days before been saying, how's the baby? Whatever. And then they didn't even acknowledge it because they were so uncomfortable with it. It's like when your father dies, people know to send you flowers. Like there's a way to deal with it, but people don't know what to say to someone who's had a miscarriage. And so they either say terrible things. Oh, I was really devastated. It was really hard. And I know not everybody is, but for me, I'd been trying to get pregnant so hard, and it was awful. And the best thing anybody ever said to me was, I'm sorry you lost your baby. And that's all I needed to hear. Right. But people would be like, oh, it was, you wouldn't have wanted to have a baby with a problem, or whatever, just like really insensitive things. You know, it's God's way of whatever. I don't know. Just
well, that's how people protect themselves from just
uncomfortable discomfort.
Yeah, and shouldering what they should be able to. Like, you know, a lot of times you just have to let somebody feel.
I know it's hard for people. I wanted to kind of, I wanted to explore that and help people feel not so alone who've gone through it, and also to educate people.
And this was a full-length documentary?
No, it was going to be a half hour because POV showed half hour. Right. So I made it specifically for that. Yeah. But it was really the first time I ever thought about an audience and who am I trying to talk to and can I stay? And I interviewed people just audio, and then I made this beautiful visual landscapes or poetic.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't actually filmed interviews?
Right. And so that was kind of my way of saying, you're still having integrity with your visual aesthetic. And it was like a radio documentary.
This is almost accessible, but let's stop it there.
Exactly. Don't go too far now. Don't go crazy.
If this were a radio show, it'd be very accessible, but it's not. It's people talking against some poetic visual stimulation.
Exactly. Well, the idea was that visual beauty would help them swallow the pill of this, uncomfortable topic. But,
but then that also speaks to your inability or your desire to connect that you were clearly not ready to do visually in the way of letting people talk on the camera.
Well, no, it hits people on a visceral level because cinematic language can be really, the associative imagery actually was, and it was a way to get people to open up because they didn't want to talk about this thing unless it was, and it made them feel safer to not be on camera.
Were you doing acting jobs at this time?
No, I think I was pretty much beyond. After I went to grad school. Okay. I just was, I think. Although I did actually in the middle of grad school, I was I went on tour with the Five Lesbian Brothers and I was like, but I'm not a lesbian. And they were like, you're an honorary lesbian. Yeah. It was so sweet of them. So I did do I'm still doing a little trickle here and there. Or I would do, my friend Madeline Olnek, who now is a filmmaker as well, was writing plays, and I would occasionally do something with her. But I wasn't pursuing it and auditioning and stuff. That was all left in the dust. And the thing that was so beautiful when I made my first feature, I edited a couple features. When we moved back to Seattle, I was hired as an editor. And that was when I edited my first feature. And
you were just hired?
Outpatient. I was just hired.
That was your marketable skill, as
It was my marketable skill. And because I was in a smaller market, I didn't have to go through years of being an assistant editor or something. That experience taught me cinematic storytelling, narratively.
That's how you learn.
And I was like, oh, I think I'm ready to do this. And I realized that all of this, what had seemed like a hairpin turn before, being an actor and putting all my effort into acting, and then all of a sudden I'm dropping that and being a photographer, it was like, why? I'm so fickle,
so then when you had
now I was like, it all adds up, and the editing, and you
trained yourself perfectly for exactly what you wanted to do.
Exactly. It was like a 20-year film school, know. But then that allowed me, because I didn't go to film school and I wasn't told this is how you make a movie. When I got on the set of my first feature, which I had done the way you're supposed to do it, you write the script, you find the people.
Which movie?
It was called We Go Way Back. It's going to be out finally this fall.
It was never released?
No, sort of almost released, and then it won Slam Dance and got Best Cinematography Award 2006.
And now it's going to be released.
Shot on 35.
How do you feel about that?
I'm so happy. It'll be
you
almost
like the movie
10-year.
still?
Oh yeah, and there's still friends of mine who say, I think it's still it's my mom, but that's still her favorite.
Well, it's good she's your friend.
She's my friend. Yeah, she's my buddy. But yeah, when I was making that movie, it became all of a sudden about. It was my first time on a set, so two things happened. I became. Just fell in love with the collaborative aspect of it, and I'm a total control freak, so it was terrifying, but it was also really liberating, and to see, oh my God, it was beautiful. And so I knew I really wanted to make art with other people and in relationship with other people, but it was so hard on the actors who I had coddled and taken care of, really took care of and brought the best out of in the audition process. So it was just me and them in a room with one little video camera. And then on set, we had this huge hulking 35 millimeter camera and smoke machines and all these bodies. And they were just like, and the whole thing all of a sudden. And I was like, oh my God, this is, because it was my first time making a movie on set. I'd been on the post side of things, so I never, and it was like the traditional way to make movies is putting up obstacle after obstacle in front of the most important work on the set. which is the actor.
Right.
Because if the acting, no matter how gorgeously lit it is, if the acting doesn't resonate, doesn't feel real,
not going to work.
It's not going to work.
Yeah.
And so then I took a cue, from Dogma 95, from the French New Wave, whatever. And then my second film, I just ejected everybody from the set, and it was just me and my buddy DP Ben holding cameras.
Yeah.
And I was like flies on the wall. I developed those characters for the people.
This is in the second movie.
Yeah, My Effortless Brilliance. And we were in a cabin in the woods, and I wanted to feel like a documentary. I wanted to feel so real. I don't want it to feel written.
Did you get it?
All improvised. And I got it. And all I wanted to do was get into South by Southwest. It was in the narrative competition, dramatic competition. And IFC bought it. I was like, what? You're kidding. Okay. And then my next movie, which was Hump Day, I knew, okay, I can make a movie this way. And what do I want to do with this one? And I wanted the tightness I wanted the momentum, narrative momentum, and the tight editing that Puffy Chair had, the Duplass Brothers movie, Puffy Chair. And I wanted it to be, I wanted to have more of a plot-driven.
Now, if I recall correctly in that movie, these guys were going to have sex.
Indeed. So it's...
but they didn't.
Yeah. Well, spoiler alert. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's all right. It's been out forever.
Why didn't they?
Because they were truly straight, and here's what happened. We shot that movie in order, and we all agreed that we would only attempt to make this movie, and we would only put it out. I would only put it out in the world.
Explain the premise again.
Well, the premise is that these two guys who really bonded in college and were like the same wild, nutty, whatever.
Right.
Mushroom trips and whatever, breaking into the zoo and just all kinds of crap, weird stuff. And they were going to go on this motorcycle trip together, and then one of them bags out and kind of goes into this, he becomes completely domesticated. So Mark Duplass's character has a house and a wife, and they're trying to get pregnant. And meanwhile, his buddy, Josh Leonard's character, is just continued. He's a nomad, he's an artist, he's traveling the world, he's searching. So they have two totally different trajectories. And then it's about 10 years later when the nomadic artist, shows up on the doorstep of the domesticated dude, and they immediately engender this, like what happens for Mark's character is basically, oh shit, he takes stock of who he is. I'm really interested in that sense of like, who do we imagine that we are? And then when you have those moments of like kind of jolts of who am I really now? Yeah. Shit. Because he sees he sees himself through the lens of his friend. I'm in the doorway. I'm standing in the doorway of this like nice house with coffee table books on my coffee table, and on my there's literally a white picket fence out front. And so if he freaks out, he's like, no, I'm not that guy inside. I'm still this wild, crazy dude, and I'm up for anything. And they engender this sense of competition in each other, like ridiculous,
right?
Kind of outduding each other.
Yeah.
And so ultimately, it ends up that they end up trying to outdude each other by doing each other, but or daring each other to do each other. So they go to this crazy party. Like a day later, they're at this party in this artist commune, and all the people there are going to make movies for this local porn festival that is real, that Dan Savage founded, called Hump. And the idea of Hump is that you're making alternative stuff. You're not just making straight porn. You're playing around with the form and having fun with it, and so or doing something avant-garde or whatever. And so here's Josh Leonard's character as this artist, and he's like, well, I'm going to do that, and they're like, oh yeah, what are you going to do that's going to actually be worth, putting into a festival like this? And they come up with the most out there idea they can come up with, which is two straight dudes having sex.
Right.
And they're drunk and they're high and whatever. And so the whole rest of the movie is just this
moving towards that.
Well, it's moving towards the fallout of having agreed to the dare, basically daring each other that first night. And they try and let each other off the hook the next day, but neither of them wants to be let off the hook because they're like, hey,
they're competing.
I'm cool. Yeah. I'm cool enough to do this. But you're the one, I think you're trying to get out of this. And it's like, I'm not trying to get out of this. And so it's just ridiculous because they don't want to do it. It's like both of them are terrified to do it. So it's
right. I remember that.
And then we shot the whole thing in order, and I had the whole thing outlined, but except for what would happen in the hotel room. And the idea was that we would get there, and then I said, okay, you guys really know who these dudes are, and I'm going to entrust you to really honestly enact this scene the way it would really play out. So really weird sidebar that there was a big French production company that bought the rights and made a remake of it. It's like a $5 million remake of my tiny micro-budget movie.
Is it out yet?
It's not out here because it bombed there and they never cleared the rights for music to do it. But we were able to get a French version of it and show it on a DVD, a special DVD player or whatever for like, 50 people or whatever. And side by side. So we showed mine and then theirs. And it's fascinating. It's so fascinating.
It's got kind of interesting.
Charlotte Gainsbourg is in it. And, it's crazy.
Was it good?
I prefer mine. But it's definitely... It's fascinating.
Yeah. I noticed that there is a class. I don't know if it's a class, but your community and your way of life and the way of lives of the people that you're familiar with are in your movies. I noticed it as being sort of specific because I noticed it in Jill's movie in Afternoon Delight that you guys know the life you live. That the type of people that are in your movies are people you would know and have dinner with, but it is sort of specific. And I mean, I'm in that world too, but did you ever notice that though? Like a lot of people don't live like us. Like, like there was something about even Ellen Page, making muffins or whatever she was pulling out of cupcake tin, that there is sort of an effort to authenticity that our generation seems to have.
Yeah. There's a book called Reality Hunger that is about that and about this hunger that people have to see authenticity. And for me, I mean, I've seen so many films. I mean, you take the wife character in Hump Day, even though she doesn't get nearly as much screen time as the guys, I wanted her to feel as fully, it's really important to me that she be as fully sort of fleshed out and three-dimensional as the guys, because how many cardboard cutout wife, whether a harpy, or the whore with the heart of gold, or I remember we saw not to dump on it, but when we saw Hangover and Ed Helms is getting screamed at by his horrible fiance, and my husband leans over to me and says, I think she's supposed to be the bitch. Yeah. And it was like, really? It's like, hello, give me a break. And so that is, in general, incredibly important to me, no matter what. If I'm using a script or I'm using, partially scripted and partly improvised, or it's all improvised, or you have people who like really need the text as the spine of their performance, which many great actors are like that. They're not writers, they're actors. Whatever it is that the method is, I always want it to feel like flesh and blood human beings on the screen that are, and that's because that's the only way that it really resonates with me.
Do you think you could bring what you do with actors to a period piece or to do you have plans to sort of challenge yourself on those levels?
I'm attached to actually a period piece that HBO, I'm not a creator, but they came to me and asked if I would direct a miniseries that has Anna Paquin and Jack Black, and that was announced a few months ago, so I can talk about that. But and I don't know when that's going to happen. But one of the reasons was, I was really intrigued, to see, to explore that territory. And like I actually am going to do a This American Life story. It's not a period piece. Well, it's a few years ago. It's based on a real life story. One of their podcasts one of their episodes that was very popular called The Mysterious, Incredible Case of the PI Moms. And amazing, crazy story that's like a comedy caper. Reminded me a little bit of Dog Day Afternoon, in that it's a real story, but it just goes everywhere. Anyway, very exciting. And I want to, it's a different genre. And I want to continue to see how I can bring that same authenticity and honesty and grounded, character-based. And all the humor needs to come from that grounded, character-based place instead of, like, I'm not as interested
Jokes.
To do just a broad comedy that doesn't,
Those are hard in a way that it's making something that's completely unnatural seem slightly acceptable.
And then you get like Bridesmaids, I thought was brilliant.
Well, yeah, it's great because the women were real.
Yeah,
women.
Exactly. And so they get put into types. Some, there's the shitting and farting and vomiting, scene, but throughout, you really, you feel for them, you feel with them because you believe in them and like their relationships and stuff.
And how old's your son?
He's 16, and it's so fun to start showing him. I mean, I've been doing it for a while now, but, it's so great to be able to relive my favorite, because what we do is watch movies, right? So, going to see Mad Max Fury Road was incredible. Go see every action movie. Yeah. But, we showed him Jaws recently. It's like, oh, yeah, you can see Jaws. And I hadn't seen Jaws since forever.
Equally as terrifying
and
every
afterwards,
time.
he was like, yeah, it was a good movie. Can we see a comedy next? Like, could we see some Monty Python? And he'd already seen Holy Grail, so we showed him Life of Brian. And I hadn't seen, again, Life of Brian forever. He's never laughed so hard in his life, like continuously. He loves to laugh. And I was really impressed with it. I was like, oh my God, I saw all kinds of brilliance in it that I hadn't even been aware of before.
Life of Brian?
Yeah.
Oh, it's great. Yeah.
It's amazing.
Real smart.
It's such a great commentary.
And he's deaf, your son?
He's deaf, yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, he had meningitis when he was a year old. We almost lost him.
It's terrifying.
Jeez. It was really, really scary. I don't recommend it. But he stuck around and... so
what
we
is
signed
that
with
experience? How is that sort of change your perception of reality?
It changes everything. Both the experience of having him be like, he was on he became basically unconscious. He was like on a heartbeat machine for almost a week. And then slowly he was able to wean off it. And in the ICU, and there were nurses who were just angels on earth.
1 year old he was?
There. He was one, yeah. They said to us, as soon as he came out of it, they were like, we were really worried, because usually they come out of it faster if they're gonna come out of it.
Yeah.
10% of the babies that age
God,
die.
what an awful time.
Yeah. And it totally changed our relationship to parenting. Like my mom is the first to tell you, as an early childhood educator, that a certain amount of benign neglect is a really healthy thing, because you give the kid a space to explore their world and stuff. But in order to teach a deaf child language, it has to there's no osmosis. They're not going to get anything overhearing a conversation at the grocery store or the zoo. They need to look right at you and get it.
Right.
And so
they're hungry for it.
Yeah. And whether it's interpreting what conversations going on over here or, whatever it is. And so it totally changed us as parents, because we had to, shift.
Learn this thing.
Yeah. But also finding out, here he was, this little tiny body. There's, it started with very dramatically with firefighters in our house, all around him turning blue on the floor. And it was very, very dramatic. And then we rushed to the hospital, all that. And then he's there, and we have our full-time nurse in the ICU. It's like a 5-star hotel. You're just like, and then you take a walk around the hospital and you see the 2-month-old next door, and the baby's this big. And then you see the parents in the cafeteria, and you realize, and you're aware that babies die, kids die. It's crazy. It's something that you really can't imagine, because it's so unimaginable. It's so wrong.
Yeah.
But kids die.
Yeah.
And so just to know that, I still to this day, it's years and years and years later, and I go and look at him sleeping and just I'm so glad you're here, man. I can't even tell you. And I came across this journal the other day. We moved houses, and so I was going through all these books, and I just opened here's Milo's hospital journal. It's like, oh shit. And I looked up, and I was plunged back into that moment, and I was just weeping and weeping, and I go over and try and explain to him. He's just looking at me like, oh God, Mom. Really? Anyway, so it changes a lot. For sure. And, just that sense of how mortal we all are.
Fragile.
Yeah, so fragile.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, are you okay?
Mark.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for letting me do this and for crying.
Well, I'm at a weird point, and I don't know what's going on with me. It's not hard to make me cry.
Oh, yeah. Well,
but
I'm the same way.
Good talking to you.
It was really great talking to you, Mark. Thank you so much for having me.
That was a great conversation. Amazing kind of evolution of creativity that it all comes together and makes sense. Lynn Shelton, good movies. Go watch her movies. I just watched Touchy Feely, and I liked it a lot. Also, WTFpod.com. Get your justcoffee.coop to get the WTF Pod blend, the WTF blend. I get a little something on the back end. Just do your business. I got the Buddha out here. The 335. more lives.